it's not really about having to choose. It's really getting to choose. Do I want to live at the level of only the mind, or do I want to live from the realm of spirit? Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Experience of the Soul podcast. So happy to have you along the soul journey with us. I want to honor you and thank you for all your gifts to our ministry. We will be doing a campaign, $9,000 in 90 days, and we have always hit that. So thank you so much for all the ways you give. Today, I'm talking about one of my favorite things, but before I get into that, I do want to bring in our producer, Mr. Sean Kilgore, for his special segment. That has become a favorite, Sean.
Oh, awesome. I'm so glad.
Yeah, I've heard from a lot of people recently. Yeah.
Nice. Very nice. I enjoy doing it. Well, welcome, friends. This is episode 418 of Experience of the Soul. Happy to be here with you as always. Today's episode is titled, Do I Have to Choose Mind or Spirit?
Yeah.
Sounds interesting. We're going to get into it in just a minute. Before we do, let's take a look at what's happening this week in spiritual history. So beginning at sundown on Wednesday, this Wednesday, June 24th, many Muslims around the world will be observing Ashura. So for some, this is a day connected with fasting and reflection, and really around the world, the day is observed through prayer and remembrance, gathering together and reflection. So for those observing Ashura this week, we hold you in our hearts. Also on Wednesday, many Christians will be celebrating the Feast of the Nativity of Saint John the Baptist. So John is remembered as the one who prepared the way, calling people toward transformation, renewal, and deeper spiritual awareness before the ministry of Jesus began. In different parts of the world, the day is marked with church services and shared meals and midsummer traditions that have been celebrated for generations.
All I can think of is
Yep. Love it.
Yeah, we love Godspell. But yes, John the Baptist does play a very important part. Yeah.
Also this week, Friday is recognized as the United Nations International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking.
Oh, yeah.
So, well, that's a very official title and a mouthful. At its heart, this day is really about awareness and recovery, compassion, and support for those who have been impacted by addiction. This is a reminder that many people, 100%. Yeah. It's a reminder that many people are carrying battles that we may never really fully understand or even see, and that kindness and support matter more than we often realize.
Beautiful. Yep. Yeah.
And our Just for Fun today, I wish I had a pair, but it's this Saturday, June 27th, is National Sunglasses Day.
We should have done that the whole show.
I should have, yeah. So honestly, this feels extremely appropriate heading into late June in Florida. It's also a decent reminder to step outside a little, enjoy some sunlight, maybe not spend the entire day staring at our screens, and get some fresh air.
Yes, I live by it. Boy, I'm out so much this time of year. Sometimes I eat breakfast and dinner outside.
Nice.
I absolutely love being out. Yeah, even in the hotter weather. I mean, I don't stay out forever. I'm smart about it. But yeah, to me, there's nothing more healing than being outside and just observing and being blessed by all the beauty, that God's given us. It's real beautiful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And your journal prompt for this week, what practices or people help keep you grounded when life feels uncertain or overwhelming? And maybe journal about those practices or those people this week.
That's a great idea, Sean. And I like that one because as those people come to mind, boy, reach out and give them a thanks and and an acknowledgement. I actually received one of those the other day. Somebody who said, I think people forget to thank ministers, and I can't tell you the impact you've had on my life. And anyway, it went on. And I'll tell you, it absolutely made my day to hear that. So yeah,
it is so true.
Just reach out and thank somebody. That's great. But I think the journal prompt is good because I think sometimes we don't realize maybe the people that are impacting us so much and helping us. So it's a great thing to be, just kind of mindful about.
Yeah. And to let those people know. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I agree that I think we forget to really thank our ministers, especially, as we're leaving church on Sunday, if something impacted you, let them know. Let you know.
Yeah. Let me know. Please let me know. If I hear one more complaint about the cookies and fellowship. Yeah.
Church. And that's,
Church.
that's the other side of
Yeah.
church.
That's the other side of church. Yeah. When stuff like that happens, I have two words that explain it all. It's just, that's church.
Yep.
You just don't take it on. What people really are saying is, I really want to belong here. Will you please talk to me? It's really not about the cookies. I've learned that. That's a long time to learn that, though.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah.
It really is. Some people aren't happy if they're not cranking about something. So
Yeah.
there's a couple of individuals I've had over the years, and one gentleman, incredible healing consciousness in many, many ways, but about every 3 or 4 Sundays, he used to come up to me and, give me a complaint. And I would say, thank you so much for your feedback. And then a couple of weeks later, he would go, you know what I said? Forget about it. I love it now. So it was great because as long as I was non-reactive and listened attentively, could repeat what he said. And sometimes there was very helpful feedback, but, I just wanted to just honor where he was, in his consciousness. So it was real sweet. Yeah, it's a learning for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, with that, friends, welcome officially. This is episode 418. Do I have to choose mind or spirit?
Yes. No. Podcast done.
Right. Yeah. Over. The end.
So, okay, friends, I wanted to explain this more. Do I have to choose mind or spirit? Well, first of all, you all know I love to talk about spiritual things. And for some reason, I was really excited about today because I have worked on this question for a very long time personally. And it took me a while to even pare down some of the aspects I wanted to talk about because of my journey and the journey of so many people that I serve. And I wanted to share with you that a friend of mine, he was a minister out in Kansas City, and he used to write on the front sign of his church, how he had one of those signs that you put out, the block letters. I had that at my church at CCU. And it said, welcome to unity, where you don't park your mind at the door. and I said, you put that on the sign? And he said, well, yeah, because I feel like at some churches, if you ask a question, you're demonized. And I said, well, gosh, that's true, isn't it? I've heard that story many, many times. As a matter of fact, I would say probably half the people in my congregation now, people that are so loving and so generous and so kind, they've told me stories that say things like, I was a troublemaker growing up in Sunday school. I asked too many questions. And what I love about that is that little soul at a very young age already had an idea that maybe what they were being taught was, kind of limited. And they wanted to know more. And it was a very genuine and thoughtful question. But to their teachers who saw God in this little box, they didn't know how to answer it. And so they shut it down. Well, I want to assure you that so many of the things I'm going to talk about today, they are biblically based. They also have some wonderful basis in emotional awareness and psychology. So it's not really about having to choose. It's really getting to choose. Do I want to live at the level of only the mind, meaning third dimension consciousness, or do I want to live from the realm of spirit? Right? So this is how I hear this question. This is one of the top 10 questions asked on Google. I thought this was fascinating. So I wanted to address this question because way in the past, the mystics had a way of talking about this. And the mystics said this plane in which we live, we often call the third dimension, they would call the plane of illusion or egoic consciousness. And in this realm, when you're not connected to the spiritual, in this realm, it's about physical desires. It's about getting all you want. A good example of ego consciousness is the guy that maybe drives a convertible and the bumper sticker says, the one who dies with the most toys wins. That's a classic egoic example of someone too imprinted in the physical and not enough identification with the spiritual. So I wanted to talk about it because everything that is happening right now, everything we're being sold, everything we're told we have to have, it plays on our most base emotions of wanting, of having, and what I will call physical desire. And there is a higher way and a higher desire that Jesus talked about, and so did many other mystics. But in John 17, Jesus was talking about this very, very high concept where he said, basically, you are in the world, but not of the world. In other words, there's something else, there's some essence that's guiding you on the journey, and it goes beyond what you can own or what you can have. And I felt this was an important question to look at, especially with all of the emphasis now on more and more money, on more and more possessions. I had a dear friend who worked at Amazon for a time and said to me, I am becoming a minimalist after working there. And when I asked her about it, she said she couldn't believe the opulence and the orders and the orders and the orders and the orders from the same household, all the stuff that just people had to have. After working there, she was like a seasonal worker, actually a retired minister who just did some seasonal work there and said, my goodness, I cannot possibly imagine needing another thing after working there. And I thought it was interesting because that's all based in desire. Now, thank goodness Amazon is there, right? It brings us things to our door within a day or two. And I love that feature. But when we're only about the physical, we start to learn that the physical things are temporary. Yeah, the physical things are temporary. I knew someone who loved cars. You know, we would have discussions about what new car, you know, she was going to buy. And she said, you know, the only problem is every time I get one, I feel just like I did before I had it. I said, oh, you mean, in other words, it doesn't solve your problem? And she goes, right. I get so excited. I buy a new vehicle. And then pretty soon I still feel like I want some more. And I said, well, how are you working with that? And she goes, I'm looking for another car. And I said, okay, that's one way to do it. That's one way to do it. And, you know, that's her process. That's her process. But it reminded me, like, I wanted to take it, you know, as a question for myself. Am I somehow still sourcing in something in the outer, expecting it to bring me lasting pleasure? Because my friends, the physical is temporary, very, very temporary. The physical ends in disappointment and disillusionment and is all based in these kind of base desires of the mind. And even, I will say, that reptilian brain back here, you know, it's just that reaction. I have to have, I have to have, I have to have. I got to keep up with people that look just like me. I got to, you know, do what they do. You know, that is all basing your sense of self on the physical realm. Again, the mystics might have called it the plane of illusion. They might have called it egoic consciousness. In other words, based in the physical and not the spiritual. So here on this show and in my work, we really focus on the spiritual. We focus on God as source. And we see that the spiritual actually informs every other area of our lives. And that when we source in the spiritual, it doesn't mean we don't have physical things, because we do. But the physical things don't have a lot of meaning because our source is God. Our essence is God. And we know that when we need something, as we source in God, whatever we need comes forward for us. Not because I had to climb over somebody to get the right promotion, or not because I had to go out there and buy to keep up with my neighbor. Right? So it's a very different way of walking through the world. And so I also know, though, that some of us are not there. And this has taken me a while to understand that there are what I like to call young souls, meaning they're new on the spiritual journey. They're new to planet Earth, and they act like 2-year-olds for their entire life. Mine, 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 mine. Give it to me. I want the one with the most toys wins. That's the 2-year-old consciousness. And I will tell you what we're seeing in the United States in terms of our president and some of the leaders. We are really seeing now a situation where the leaders are acting like children. They're putting out inappropriate posts on the social media. They're saying demeaning things. And it's not one individual. And it's not even just the United States. Right. And so that consciousness is the very egoic, young soul kind of consciousness. And old consciousness, or like you'll hear people say, oh, that's an old soul, or that's a wise soul. If somebody's calling you old soul, what they're telling you is you're wise beyond your years. Like I've talked to 9 and 10-year-olds, for instance, that sound like they're 40 or 50 years old because they simply have this innate wisdom that is different from most kids their age. So the reason that is because they've been here before. They've been here for other lifetimes. And each lifetime, you're here to learn new lessons, but it doesn't mean you forget everything you've known before. So the idea is that we want to move from this third dimensional physical reality consciousness that's only based on what I want, and move to the more expansive God consciousness, which sees unity, which sees oneness, which sees hope, and source then in that type of energy as we go to, walk in the world. That we're not simply thinking about what do I want, but we're thinking, how can my life be a blessing? And so rather than looking to get everywhere we go, like we're not a taker of life everywhere, but we're a giver to life. And that's what we're beginning to do. So many of us on the spiritual journey that has deepened, we're seeking to see how can I give my gifts in a meaningful way to the world at large? How am I able to do this? Through my work, through my walk with God, through my development of a soul. How am I able to do this? And we do this through our God connection. So I want to be very clear that the mind in itself is not bad. Using the mind to do things like balance your checkbook and know when to cross the street. You don't have to meditate to know how to do that. But the mind is very, very limited. And so then the question becomes, well, if it's not the mind, what is guiding us into this God connection? And so we often on the show talk about the soul. And I wanted to break this down again, especially because I know we have some new listeners. And we are really what is called spirit, soul, and body. And so our body, yes, is our physical bodies that we walk around in. The mind, of course, is contained in the body. But the spirit of us is the very essence of God that doesn't change. And our soul is our individual soul journey, meaning our thoughts, our feelings, our beliefs, our ideas. And so it's all included. So it's not like there's 3 sections. If you go to the doctor, you can't say, would you examine my spirit, my soul, and my body? No, that doesn't happen. But there are 3 integrated parts of one whole. And so your body is simply a manifestation of your spirit and soul. And so the spirit of us is the God part, again, that never changes. But our life experience is what our individual soul journey is. What happens? What's our belief system after something happens? And then as we're born into new lifetimes, the Bible tells us our soul is eternal, right? So every new lifetime, we're reborn. And by the way, there are many, many scriptures that lead us to believe that during the time of Jesus, reincarnation was discussed. It was a common teaching of the day. This was a religious and spiritual crossroads during that time, and of where Jesus was. And this idea of reincarnation was not feared. As a matter of fact, many people said to Jesus, oh, is he Elijah? Well, how would they think he was Elijah if they didn't believe in reincarnation. What they were saying is this Elijah's spirit reborn in this man called Jesus of Nazareth? Because his teaching were so profoundly spiritual. They said, is this Elijah? Yeah. So in our spiritual journey, or in our individual soul journey, we are seeking to move from third dimension, egoic consciousness, or this plane of illusion that is telling us get all you can, into this awareness of God in us, through us, and as us, that this awareness of God can be felt and known, and that this God presence then can be understood. This God presence can be listened to, consulted, and that as we move forward on the journey, that as Sean talked about earlier, we're listening, we're journaling, we're praying, we're meditating. We take time every day maybe to take 10 deep breaths and listen for the voice of God to speak to us. So we are seeking then to have our journey be from just the mind into spirit, and see how those work together. And then how we live that out, that is our soul journey. That is our soul journey. When we understand this, life becomes exciting. Life becomes an adventure. Life becomes interesting, because we are seeking to see, how is the presence of God alive in this very moment? How is the presence of God leading me to my next steps? How is the presence of God bringing people into my life and world that I need to move forward? And my friends, you could not think enough to do what the Spirit of God can do in you. There's a saying in the corporate world, I'm sure, Sean, you're familiar with it. Another meeting of analysis paralysis. We have a meeting to decide the next meeting to decide the next meeting. They say we're thinking everything to death. And what I love about the spiritual journey is, yes, thinking is a part. As a friend so plainly said, you don't have to park your mind at the door. But it is a journey of spirit in you, working with your mind and illuminating your thoughts. It is a journey of spiritual growth and illumination as you take time every day to talk with God. We've talked before on the show, we did a whole show on prayer where we, discussed taking a prayer that you might want to work with every day. And as you do that, my friends, you're going to bring illumination, you're going to bring awareness, and you're going to be, in fact, co-creating with God, your life and world. So the mind is not a problem. The ego itself is not a problem in its proper perspective. But we don't want to live out of the egoic consciousness. We don't want to be in this plane of illusion and think this is all there is. I will tell you that I've worked with many people that were ready to die and what I often call make their transition from this earthly plane to the heavenly plane. And I can tell you that in the last moments, the thing people think the most is, I wish I would have loved more. I wish I would have loved better. I wish I would have said, I forgive you. Please forgive me more. People do not say, I wish I would have had more. I've never heard it. I've never heard that. And everything is so loud right now, selling us things we don't need, knocking at the door of our hearts and souls, trying to help us believe there's something fundamentally wrong with us. And the church the modern church is even a perpetrator of this. So busy telling us how sinful we are, we forget how spiritual and wonderful we are. But the Bible says we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Jesus said, you are the light of the world. And so, my friends, it is with this awareness that we seek to walk through the world, that it is with the awareness that we are more than this plane of illusion. We are more than just our thinking and our physical body. In fact, we are spiritual. We are innately spiritual. And so, as Jesus so beautifully taught us, we are to be in the world, but not of the world. We want our presence to be so connected with God that as we walk around through the world, we become a blessing to others. We bring light, we bring help, we bring support, we bring illumination. So this is our hope and this is our prayer. This is the work we do here at Experience of the Soul podcast. We are seeking to lift up these spiritual messages that remind you of what is possible for you, that reminds you of your innate goodness, that in fact, my friends, you are sacred, you are holy. Jesus, the Master himself, told us that. So as you go throughout your day, just play a game with yourself. Am I stuck in the mind and the third dimension consciousness, or am I connecting with God? Am I stuck in worrying about what people think, or am I confident that God loves me and that as I walk through the world, I'm drawing my good to me? It's a very different way to be. Third dimension, egoic, plane of illusion consciousness is rooted in fear and this fear of not enough, this fear of not having. And so, my friends, I hope you can move into this place of confidence, this place of faith, this place of love, this place of illumination and awareness. As you know, wherever I am, God is sourcing me, God is helping me, God is guiding me on this journey we call life. So, my friends, this is my hope for you. I hope you're going to go throughout the week this week and play a little game with yourself of asking, gosh, am I stuck in third dimension consciousness, or am I seeking and moving into God consciousness? And what I know is as you seek to move into God consciousness, you will be helped. You will be supported. You will be blessed. This is our hope for you, my friends. We want you to be happy, healthy, and at peace. And we know you do that by trusting in God, by knowing that you are a soul that's here to grow, prosper, and evolve, and that you seek Spirit's guidance as you do this work. So, my friends, we are honored, as always, that you join us. We are blessed and so happy to receive your love and your trust. And we thank you for your financial support that keeps us on the air. So, my friends, we look forward to seeing you next week, and blessings on the journey.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Experience of the Soul with Cynthia Alice Anderson. If this message resonated with you, we invite you to share it with someone who might need it today. This show is made possible by listeners like you, and we're grateful for the community that helps keep these conversations available to all. You can learn more or contribute to the show at cynthiaaliceanderson.com/donate. Produced by Kilgore Creative and a production of the Soulworks Group Incorporated. Until next time, take good care.